Welcome everyone, this is Tactical Lich here, and today we are back on the battlefields of Total War Warhammer 2 online multiplayer. It's been quite a while since I played Game 2 before this match, so this is more like a rehabilitation match against my opponent here, me bringing the Wood Elves, while I will be playing as the High Elves with not exactly the optimal build. In the front we are spamming Shadow Warriors and a couple Illyrian Reaver Archers. And at the back we have a bunch of Illyrian Reavers, the melee variant. And further back we have a whole line of Rangers protecting a single Mage of Shadows, backed up by Tyrion, who is a very formidable melee combatant coming in with his full gear with the Stand Your Ground, Feint and Riposte, Sunfang, as well as the Heart of Avalon. While over here from our opponent, we have a front line of Eternal Guards with shields, basically a box build protecting a bunch of Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts. At the back, we have a couple War Dancers, lightly armored, pretty glass cannon, but very good at clearing out unarmored infantry. And further back for the mobility, we have a single unit of Glade Riders with Hackbane tips, a single unit of Glade Riders, and a couple Wild Riders with shield, leading by yet another formidable melee combatant as well, Durfu the Tree Papa, ready to dice up some Ashers with his giant amber sword. And that's basically it for army builds. Now let's get the battle started. Seems like the High Elves are still mad at the Wood Elf Brethren, who sought independence after the outbreak of the War of the Beard, and now they're rushing forward with menace, with the Rangers charging forward and the Shadow Warriors pushing ahead and now raining shots into the Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts, while the mobility here, the Illyrian Reavers are maneuvering towards the flank and hoping to get a surround into the enemy, but that also exposes the other flank, the left flank of the High Elf army, allowing the Wild Riders here, me doing an excellent job with his micro, charging straight into these Rangers, devastating my loose formation, as they do not have the most resistance against the DPS of all these Wild Riders. They also have low armor, making them extra vulnerable to these kind of high charge bonus attacks. On top of that, there are the Starfire Shafts coming in with that cover fire, chipping away the health of my Rangers while allowing the Wild Riders to pull back. And my front line are pretty much in shambles on the left flank, allowing some more Wild Riders charging in at the back of these Rangers, though our right flank push is a little smoother with the Rangers dealing with the Eternal Guards and a pendulum dropped from my Shadow Mage. We have devastated the War Dancers, and with the help of some Illyrian Reavers, Eternal Guards here are being enveloped. But that also exposes their flank to the Wild Riders, who are now charging in, ripping apart my lightly armored cavalry and infantry alike, while my Shadow Warriors will be focusing down all these expensive Starfire Shafts and then turning their targets into some of these Wild Riders as well. However, this one Wild Rider unit is left here unchecked. I'll be forced to pull back my fragile skirmishers back to safety in a great hurry, even sacrificing one of my Illyrian Reaver Archers to pin them down so that the Shadow Warriors will be able to pull back to safety as they turn around, charge, and intercepted these Wild Rider units. On the front line, there are still some Rangers pushing forward, blending their way through the Eternal Guards, but my push for the backlines is in pretty much shambles, with the reaction of my opponent here, Glade Riders, pinning down my Illyrian Reavers, and most of these Glade Guards are intact, protected from my mobility, while Tyrion charging into combat, fighting against the big Tree Papa Durfu. He might have a flaming sword, but for some reason he still doesn't do flaming attacks, so his damage is largely mitigated by the physical resistance on Tree Papa Durfu, especially with a bunch of buffs coming in with Foe Seeker, and for a while he actually had the Pens and Impenetrable Pelt on, providing extra physical resistance and melee defense, allowing him to hold out in this combat, while Tyrion does not have any protection. On top of that, he was forced to turn around to face the Eternal Guards, leaving his back exposed to Durfu. So after a couple big hits from the Amber Sword, the Heart of Avalon is procced, giving Tyrion a big burst heal. But the problem is, he does not recover his leadership, with a bunch of pursuing units and without any friendlies to help him bail him out of this situation. Tyrion has no regard of dignity and runs like a coward. He will be pushed off the battlefield, especially now that my mobility over here, the Illyrian Reavers are chased down by the Glade Riders, and then we have the Eternal Guards pushing away my Shadow Warriors, and all my units are pretty much scattered on the field. I was able to push off some of the Wild Riders, even shatter them, Where are they? Not quite sure. Anyways, basically, the Illyrian Reaver archers charged into the Wild Riders, allowing the Shadow Warriors to focus them down, while at the back, we have some Shadow Warriors kiting away the Eternal Gods, but the Eternal Gods, using their Silver Shield, absorbed a lot of my shots before they turn around and expose their rear to the Shadow Warriors. While my Illyrian Reaver archers are my only mobility left, and they do not have much ammo nor HP left, forcing me to use up all these Shadow Warriors to snipe out the powerhouses of this Wood Elf build, and that is Durthu. While they themselves are exposed to the counterfire from the Glade Gods with Starfire Shaft and taking some damage in return. While over here, I maneuvered some Illyrian Reaver archers. Hopefully, we can try bail out the Glade Riders, but I have a bit of slacking in micro, putting them into the exposure of all these crossfire from the Glade Gods, and as a result, they took some heavy damage, while Tyrion is still not saved yet, as the Eternal God here, very nice maneuver by my opponent, stationed right here to screen out my mobility, while the firepower from the Glade Riders and the Glade Gods are slowly chipping away my mobility's HP. Although I still have the Shadow Warriors here having quite some ammo, they're showering Durthu with all that firepower, but Durthu responded with a Pens and Penetrable Pout. That physical resistance up to 40% physical resistance, and combined with the innate missile resistance on the characters. Now, Durthu has 55% damage resistance to the non-armor piercing Shadow Warrior shots, mitigating my firepower by a huge amount and making me wasting a lot more shots into this pretty much impenetrable bark of the Tree Papa. And at the same time, while my firepower are distracted, the Starfire Shafts are raining down shots into my formations, and with every single unit model dying from that firepower, I'm also losing additional ammo as the unit models die with their ammo on them. Still, we have some Shadow Warriors here who have been kiting the whole time. They are now charging back into combat, trying to rip apart these Eternal Gods. They are decent melee combatants, especially with that martial prowess active, buffing their attack and defense in combat. The Shadow Mage also joins in with a pendulum, cleaving a bloody path along the lines of Eternal Gods. The Shadow Warriors right now are in a slight advantage in combat, but Durthu here coming in with the massive Ember Sword, quickly evening the odds with a few clean swipes. Then I made a massive mistake. I charged in my Mage of Shadows, my opponent noticing that turned Durthu around, targeting my mage and strike her down with a couple hits. Of course, this is expected when you send in a fragile mage against the mighty Durthu, and the mage is routed. With this little hit of leadership, plus the Curse of Onraya lowering their melee stats, the Shadow Warriors are actually terrified, unable to break these Eternal Gods despite putting them on the verge of routing. While on the rest of the battlefield, we have some Shadow Warriors being caught by the Eternal Gods and the combination of Glade Riders. I'm pulling back some of the routed Illyrian Reaver archers, hoping to push them off, while this one remaining Shadow Warriors are still firing, hoping to chip away the health of Papa Durthu, who still have 1200 HP left, while my Illyrian Reaver archers has advanced way too much here, being caught by the Glade Gods, and then the close presence of Tree Papa Durthu terrified them. With that, I only have a couple battered Shadow Warriors left. One actually came back from routing, but also really exhausted and depleted, while the Shadow Warriors in front, who still have some ammo left, are being tangled up by some of the Glade Riders. Well, Tyrion came back, but he is a coward, only having 459 HP left as he routed all the way to the other side of the battlefield. Well, he's not exactly contributing to this battle much. And with that, a lot of my units, despite rather healthy a few seconds ago, got surrounded by a bunch of Glade Riders, smashed by Durthu, and swarmed by the remaining depleted units of the Wood Elf army. While I do not have any options to stop this mobility onslaught from the Glade Riders, Tyrion charges into combat, hopefully trying to use his decent melee stats to smash apart some of these Eternal Gods and whatnot, but Durthu comes in yet again. Tyrion drops in one last defiant Sunfang, and then he fell under the sword of Durthu. And with the death of Tyrion, the High Elves are on the verge of army losses as the leadership penalty from the death of their lord kicks in, and a bunch of units shattered, routed, and whatnot. We have the Illyrian Reavers terrified by Durfu as well. The Shadow Warriors are routed. There's a unit of Glade Riders surrounding my Mage of Shadows. There's no way I can pull back this game, and the High Elf armies got scattered to the four winds as the Wood Elf army marches on. Now let us quickly sum up this battle with some army performances review. For the Shadow Warriors, as always, they're an absolutely solid unit with a lot of skirmishing firepower, gunning down a bunch of Glade Guards and the Wild Riders, getting massive valor and also shooting up Durfu pretty bad. The problem is the heavy bark of Durfu, the heavy armor, and also the physical resistance, missile resistance coming in from his own innate attributes, as well as the impenetrable pelt, mitigating a lot of my missile damage, which leads to shots that could have been spent somewhere else, wasted on shooting up Durfu. While Tyrion, he is an absolutely disappointment here. Yes, he did some damage with the Sunfang and chipped away the health of Durfu, but the problem is, even with the heal proc, he cannot hold up his leadership. The Heart of Avalon healing only procs when his HP runs low. His leadership would be questionable at best, and more likely being chased off by a bunch of surrounding units, including the Eternal Gods, the Glade Riders, who basically hacked away his health all the way down to 400 something when he was at almost full health due to that Heart of Avalon proc. Tyrion, despite all the buffs he can receive from his abilities and items, he is still a coward who runs away from battle, even after receiving a massive heal from his Heart of Avalon. If anything, I feel like the Heart of Avalon should give him a short unbreakable time, maybe like 3-5 seconds of unbreakable or leadership buff to help him mitigate that kind of low HP detriment to the morale. As for the other units, we have a disappointment line of Rangers, not really because of Rangers are being bad, but more because of my opponent's excellent use of the Wild Riders, running down the fragile infantry with the high charge bonus, while the Shadow Mage managed to do some decent damage with those pendulums, getting some decent value. And for the mobility, I totally mismicroed them due to not getting a lot of value as they're dragged down by Glade Riders, shot up by the Glade Riders with Hackbane Tips and the Glade Gods with Starfire Shafts. As for my opponent's army, the Eternal Gods did an okay job holding back the line of Rangers, while the War Dancers got shot up pretty bad by a bunch of Shadow Warriors and also Illyrian Reaver Archers, while the Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts, one of them getting some really decent damage, the other one as well, and then the Glade Riders chasing down Tyrion, shooting up my mobility, getting over 2,000 gold worth of damage, and still mostly intact in the endgame. Absolutely Valor City. As for the remaining mobility, the Wild Riders got shot up pretty bad by the Shadow Warriors due to their low armor, still managing to break off my bunch of Rangers and whatnot. Not the greatest performance, but also not bad either. And Durfu getting over 2,800 gold worth of damage, an absolute powerhouse of melee unit, dishing out the pain against my leadership, smacking my Mage of Shadows and Tyrion in combat, while absorbing a whole bunch of ammo from my Shadow Warriors. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's battle. I hope you enjoy it. Big thanks to me for playing against me and giving us such a great example of the use of Pan's Impenetrable Pelt to mitigate damage on Papa Durfu, and also some nice mobility maneuvers from the Glade Riders and Wild Riders as well. Anyways, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this kind of content, remember to hit the like and subscribe to stay up to date. Keep an eye out on channel. And if you like this content, remember to hit the like and subscribe to keep an eye out on the channel for future uploads. There will be more battle replays like this one, wild army build, occasional tips and strategies for Total War Warhammer multiplayer, and also some meme videos. And if you want to showcase any replays, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.